Let's keep the wedding small, excluding the dead weight. That's the text my brother's fiancée sent to the group chat. The worst part? Her friends liked the message. I was the one paying for their honeymoon to Bali, so I cancelled it, booked a solo trip to Croatia, and waited until the rehearsal dinner to tell them. I, 32M, never thought it would come to this, but here we are. Some context first. My brother and I grew up dirt poor. Our parents worked themselves to the bone just to keep us fed and clothed. When Dad died 6 years ago from a heart attack, he probably could have survived if we'd had better insurance. Mom made us promise to always look out for each other. I took that promise seriously. I did well for myself, went into finance, climbed the ladder, made some smart investments. My brother took a different path. He's a high school teacher, loves his job, makes a difference in kids' lives, but the pay is what it is. When he got engaged 8 months ago, I was genuinely happy for him. His fiancée seemed nice enough at first, polite, always thanked me when I picked up dinner tabs. I should have paid more attention to the way she looked at our mom's worn furniture or how she'd go quiet when my brother mentioned budget constraints. The wedding planning started small. They wanted something intimate, just close family and friends. I offered to help financially because that's what you do for family. My brother was hesitant, but I insisted. Mum was so excited she cried. I ended up covering the venue, the catering, and when they mentioned they couldn't afford a honeymoon, I secretly booked them 2 weeks in Bali, flights, resort, everything. I was planning to surprise them at the rehearsal dinner. I felt good about it. I felt like I was honoring Dad's memory by taking care of my little brother. 3 months before the wedding, she added me to a family group chat. The usual stuff at first, save the dates, vendor updates, color schemes. I pretended to care about. My brother's fiancée seemed to be running the show, which was fine. She was organized, had opinions, kept things moving. Mom stayed quiet in the chat, just sending hard emojis occasionally. I participated when needed, confirmed I'd be there for whatever they needed. Then 2 months ago, things shifted. The guest list started growing. Suddenly it wasn't intimate anymore, it was 150 people. The fiancé had opinions about upgrading everything. Better flowers, more expensive cake, premium bar. My brother would occasionally push back gently in the chat about costs, and she'd go silent for days. I'd watch the read receipts pile up with no responses. The tension was obvious, even through text messages. I noticed she started posting in the group less frequently, but meeting with her friends more. My brother mentioned she was stressed, that wedding planning was harder than they thought. I suggested they scale back if the pressure was too much. He said she had her heart set on making it perfect. I didn't push. I figured every couple has their process. The message came on a Wednesday evening. I was at my desk reviewing quarterly reports when my phone buzzed. The group chat. She had written something and tagged it to everyone. Let's keep the wedding small, excluding the dead weight. I stared at it, read it again. Then I watched the likes roll in. Her maid of honor, her 2 bridesmaids, her mother for likes total. The message sat there like a bomb that hadn't fully detonated yet. I waited for my brother to respond, to ask what she meant, to shut it down. Nothing. I waited for Mum to say something. The read receipt showed she'd seen it, still nothing. My hands were shaking. I typed out 3 different responses and deleted them all. Who was the dead weight? Was it me? Was it Mom? Was it my brother's childhood friends who weren't wealthy enough or polished enough for whatever vision she had? I set my phone down and tried to go back to work. Couldn't focus. That phrase kept looping in my head. Dead weight. Like we were anchors dragging down her perfect day. I called my brother that night, asked him if he'd seen the message. He had. He laughed it off. Said she probably just meant they needed to trim the guest list for budget reasons, that I was reading too much into it. I asked him point blank if she meant me or Mom. He got defensive, said I was being paranoid, that his fiancée loved our family. The conversation ended badly. He was annoyed. I was hurt. Neither of us apologized. I didn't sleep that night. I kept checking the group chat. The message was still there. The likes were still there. Nobody had clarified, nobody had walked it back. By morning I made my decision. If we were dead weight, then she could plan her perfect wedding without our dead weight contribution. I spent the next day calling the resort in Bali. Explained the situation vaguely. Asked about cancellation policies. There'd be a fee, but I could get about 70% back if I cancelled within the next week. I told them I'd call back. Then I did something I'm not proud of. I went through my files and calculated exactly how much I'd already put into this wedding. Venue deposit, catering down payment, the contribution to her dress alterations because apparently the one she wanted was out of budget. It was substantial. It was a down payment on a small house. Kind of substantial. I sat with it for 3 days, kept watching the group chat. She posted updates about centerpieces, about the DJ playlist, about signature cocktails. My brother chimed in with enthusiasm. Mum sent her heart emojis. Nobody mentioned the dead weight comment. It was like it never happened, like I was supposed to just swallow it and keep funding everything with a smile. On day 4, I made the calls. Cancelled Bali. The resort was sorry to see it go. I took the refund. Then I did something petty, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I booked myself a solo trip. Same 2 weeks they were supposed to be gone. Croatia sailing the coast. I'd always wanted to go and never made time. If I was dead weight, I might as well drop off the boat entirely. I didn't tell anyone. Kept showing up to wedding planning sessions when my brother asked. Not at a cake tastings. Confirmed I'd rented my tux. I watched the fiancé talk about the honeymoon they were hoping to take someday once they saved up. My brother looked uncomfortable every time it came up. She'd pat his hand and say it was fine. They had their whole lives ahead of them. I said nothing. Mom squeezed my hand once during a planning dinner and whispered that I was a good son. I nearly broke right there. The weeks crawled by. The wedding got bigger. The fiancé got more demanding. There was drama about seating arrangements. Apparently, some of my brother's college friends weren't sophisticated enough to sit near her family. There was an argument about Mom's dress not being formal enough. I watched my brother get smaller and smaller, agreeing to things I knew he didn't want, defending choices that made him uncomfortable. I almost said something a dozen times, but I kept thinking about that message, those likes, the silence that followed. Rehearsal dinner was scheduled for the Friday before the Saturday wedding. It was at a nice restaurant her parents picked. I showed up in my suit, gift bag in hand. A photo album I'd made of my brother growing up, pictures of him and Dad, moments she'd never seen. I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe I'd overreacted. Maybe tonight we'd all laugh and everything would be fine. Dinner went smoothly at first. Toasts were made. Her father talked about gaining a son. Her mother cried happy tears. My brother looked nervous, but happy. The fiancée glowed. She was good at this, I realized, good at playing the part. Then came the speeches from the wedding party. Her maid of honor stood up, champagne in hand. She launched into a story about how the fiancé always knew what she wanted and never settled for less. How she'd upgraded her whole life. When she met my brother, how she was finally getting everything she deserved. The bridesmaids laughed. Her family nodded. I watched my brother's face. He was smiling, but his eyes were wrong. Then the maid of honor said it. Said she was so glad the bride had trimmed the fat and kept things elegant. Said some people just don't fit the aesthetic. The table laughed. Not everyone, not my brother, not Mum, but enough people laughed that it was clear this was an inside joke. Clear that the dead weight comment hadn't been a one-time thing. It was a whole attitude, a whole campaign. I felt my face go hot, looked at my brother. He was staring at his plate. Mom excused herself to the bathroom. I saw her wipe her eyes as she left. The fiancé was beaming, hugging her maid of honor, saying something about how they always understood each other. That's when I stood up, asked if I could say something. My brother looked panicked. The fiancé looked annoyed, but gestured for me to go ahead. I kept it simple, said I was so happy for them both. The timestamp 5 weeks ago, 2 days after the dead weight message. I told them I thought hard about whether to say something sooner, but I figured if we were dead weight, they want to handle their wedding themselves, without our contributions dragging down the aesthetic. I turned to my brother and said I'd always love him, but I couldn't keep funding a celebration where his family wasn't welcome. Then I set down the photo album and walked out. My phone exploded before I even got to my car. My brother called 4 times, texted a dozen more. The fiancée sent a message that started with confusion and ended with accusations of sabotage. Her mother called me selfish. Her father called me worse. I blocked them all except my brother and Mum. Drove home, poured a drink, sat in the dark. Mum called an hour later. She was crying. Asked me what happened. I told her everything, the message, the silence, the maid of honor speech. She went quiet for a long time. Then she said Dad would be proud of me for standing up for myself, but sad that it came to this. She said she loved me. She said she'd talk to my brother. I told her not to choose sides. Showed him the text his wife sent after I left the rehearsal dinner, where she called me a bitter who couldn't stand to see other people happy. Asked him if that sounded like someone who respected his family. He read everything twice. His hands were shaking. He apologized, said he'd been so caught up in wanting everything to work that he'd ignored the signs. Update 2. It's been 4 months. My brother and his wife are in counseling. She apparently had a breakdown when he confronted her with the screenshots and his own observations. Said she felt pressure to present a certain image, that her family had expectations, that she'd gotten caught up in competing with her friends' weddings and lost sight of what mattered. About how proud he was when I got my first real job. About how he'd always worried my brother was too soft, too eager to please, and how he'd made her promise to watch out for that. We cried together. We laughed together. We healed some things that had been broken longer than just this wedding drama. My brother's wife sent me an apology email 2 months after the wedding. It was long, detailed. She acknowledged the dead weight comment was hurtful, said she understood why I'd reacted the way I did, said she hoped we could rebuild trust over time. I didn't respond immediately, sat with it for a week. Then I sent back a short reply. Said I appreciated the apology, that I hoped she and my brother built a good life together. That trust would take time and action, not just words. That I wished them well, but our relationship would need to be rebuilt slowly, if at all. She didn't like that. I heard from my brother that she'd expected immediate forgiveness, that she'd done everything right by apologizing, and now I was being stubborn. He didn't push me, though, said he understood. Said he had his own rebuilding to do with Mom and with me. I've kept my distance, show up for family things when Mom is there. Stay polite, but not warm with his wife. My brother and I text occasionally. Nothing deep, surface-level stuff. He knows the door is open when he's ready to really deal with what happened. I'm not holding my breath. The money I got back from Bali, plus what I saved by pulling back from their life, I put it toward a down payment on a small house for Mom. She cried when I told her, said she couldn't accept it. I told her it wasn't about acceptance. It was about making sure she was taken care of, that Dad would have wanted it. She moved in 2 weeks ago. My brother helped with the move. His wife didn't come. I don't regret what I did. I regret that it came to that. I regret that my brother married someone who sees people as assets or liabilities. I regret that a wedding one day managed to expose so many cracks in our family that we'd all been ignoring. But I don't regret standing up for Mom and myself. I don't regret refusing to fund my own disrespect. Some people have called me petty. Maybe they're right, but there's a difference between being petty and having boundaries. Between being vindictive and refusing to be a doormat, I funded a wedding for people who saw me as dead weight. When I stopped carrying the load, they realized exactly how heavy their expectations had been. My brother will figure out his marriage or he won't. Either way, he knows where I stand. He knows what family is supposed to look like. He knows that love isn't just about showing up. It's about who you show up for and how you treat them when they do. I hope he figures it out. I hope his wife genuinely changes, but I'm not waiting around to find out. I'm in Mom's new house right now, helping her hang pictures. She's laughing at a photo of my brother and me covered in mud from some childhood adventure, asking if I remember the day. I do. We were inseparable back then. Maybe we'll get back there someday. Maybe we won't. But I know I did the right thing. Dad would have understood. What do you think? Was I just being petty? Or was it time to stop funding my own disrespect? Let me know your thoughts down below. And if you enjoyed this story, be sure to follow for more.